I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Visitor Network TV and Channel 99. Our guest today is Janice Carreiro, the program manager for the Rental Assistance Program.
Correct.
Welcome, Janice.
Thank
nice
you.
to have you here. You said you were here with Whitey a few years ago.
Several years ago.
And
Here I am
it's
again.
about time to have you back. Tell us a little bit just about the purpose of the Rental Assistance Program, who sponsors it, and so forth, before we get into
Sure.
the details.
The Rental Assistance Program is part of the Nantucket Interfaith Council, which runs two outreach programs for island residents, one being the food pantry, which many people are familiar with, and then the Rental Assistance Program. Rental Assistance Program was started by the council as a nonprofit in 2004 at the heyday of the economic boom on the island, when workers on the island were finding it impossible to find housing and to be able to afford housing. Doesn't that sound familiar? We're right back where we started. And then we were there through the downturn when the island was not as prosperous, and
People
folks
didn't have as much
they couldn't
work.
afford the housing, they
Right.
didn't have work. So we're there to provide short-term financial assistance to island residents, year-round residents who are having some difficulty either finding or getting into or being able to afford their rental housing for a period of time, mostly in the off-season, due to maybe lack of employment, due to major illness and they're not able to work, due to temporary disability, due to having to move, having an unplanned move because the rental unit they're in is either being sold or is being turned back into seasonal or is not suitable housing, unpermitted, et cetera, and they need to move. So we're there to either pay a small stipend for a few months or to help first and last so people can move.
What is your fiscal year? December?
No, we run July 1
July 1.
through June 30th.
So in the last year ended June 30th.
Sure.
How many people did you help?
We helped 40 families.
An average dollar amount?
That
roughly?
varies because of the situation.
Clearly, but
we have paid for single family housing. We have paid for a higher number of shared housing because there's no housing available. So on average, the average payout, there's a maximum that anyone can get. The average payout is around $2,500. The max that anyone can get is $4,000 in an 18-month period. Some statistics, if you're interested,
Yes,
because everyone
it's
thinks
important.
this program is for the brand new person coming on or whatever. The average household that we assisted last year had lived on island for 21 years, and the average age was 45. Maybe 35, 40% single parent households. 23% last year in shared households, and that was a high for us.
So
but
that's almost 10 out of the 40. Yeah.
That's right. That's because there is no housing out there.
Right, we'll come back to that in a
Yeah,
minute.
but,
that's really why
so that's
you're
what,
here.
that's what we deal with,
Yeah.
and it changes from year to year, but it has consistently been assisting folks who have lived here at least 10 years. I mean, we do have some who have lived here only 2 and 4 and 5, but the averages have always been in the 10-year range. So we are talking about long-time island residents who cannot afford or find housing.
Where do you get your support from?
Combination of things. Number one, grants. We have had it every year. We must reapply, but
Right.
we've had a generous funding from the Community Preservation Committee. We have had funding from the town Human Resources.
But that's gone now, isn't it? Or is it still?
No,
Yeah,
and
so-
the process is still there. I mean, we have a little less funding than we've had in the past. We applied to grants to foundations. The Bank of America has been very generous to us. Cape Cod 5, Nantucket Bank.
How much of your time do you spend fundraising, and how much of your time do you spend actually on the program?
I have it down to a science now. During the off season, which for me is July to September.
Your off season.
Yeah, my off season. I spend time writing grants and seeking donations. During the winter season, which is my season, I spent most of my time dealing with individuals in rental assistance, and I also do fuel assistance processing. So that's straight out during
Right.
my season, which
Right.
is the off season.
So typically, how does somebody find you?
It's generally a referral, and it may be a referral from one of the churches. It may be a referral from the hospital, the doctor's offices, like the counseling services on the island. Word of mouth. Basically, it's all referral.
Of the people, how many more people sort of would like to be on your list on average every year? than you can
Again,
take
that's
care
a factor of housing ability. I think last year, as I said, we helped 40 families.
Right.
We could have helped 5 to 10 more if they were able to find housing, because we do not find the housing. They must come to us with housing, either to move into or what they're in. We must determine if that housing is permitted, suitable.
Do you have situations where it isn't?
Yes, many,
What do you
several.
do? What do you do then?
I generally tell them that because we have state funding and we have town funding, if they can find suitable housing, we'll move them out. Because I've dealt with many situations of folks living in basements that have damp and moldy, and children need to move because they have asthma.
3 other families living there.
Yeah, and then overcrowded situations, and if they can find some place, and we'll try to help, through word of mouth. We have resources we can call folks, other agencies. We'll pay the first and last to get them out of those kinds of situations. And yes, I have seen them, I have dealt with them, and it's not pretty.
Do many people come to you thinking you can help them find?
Yes, yes, I cannot tell you how many phone calls I've received this summer alone, just with people, seasonal folks looking for housing, and then year-round folks, and then the folks who have to deal with the shuffle. They're every September I start getting the calls. I've got to leave. I mean, I need to find a place. And then every June when they have to move, where can I go? And I've had calls from mothers off island whose children were college children were coming to work, and did I know of anything, because they wanted their children in safe situations. It every week. This week I had a call from a friend who was desperately looking for housing for a new teacher on the island. It's constant.
So what's your view of what's going on right now?
I try to stay out of
I
the politics, but I think we're at crisis. We are, when a teacher can't find housing, when a nursing assistant can't find housing, when someone was born here can't find housing. We're at a crisis. So, and I know there's a thought out there, well, not everyone can live on Nantucket. Not everyone can, but when I go to the bank, I expect a teller to be there. And when I go to the grocery store, I expect a cashier at the
Or if
register.
you go to a restaurant,
And
you don't
I
expect to wait
right.
45 minutes
And I
for your...
I don't expect my dishes to be dirty. Someone's in the back washing them.
Or somebody's taking your order.
And somebody's taking your
And
order.
somebody's cooking.
And there are teaching assistants in the school, we expect those services so that we have a good life here. How are you going to have that if if they could afford the High Line or the steamship every day? What happens in bad weather? They live here. Their children go to school here. I have dealt with many situations where I suggested that maybe this is not going to work, and maybe you might have to leave. Parents will live in cars to have their children in what they perceive to be and what is a safe school system and a caring and a nurturing school system. They will do anything not to leave.
So what is the answer from your perspective?
The answer is we have to begin to do something, and it has to be a combination of things. Just the 40B is not going to make it. It's a political hot potato. town needs to step in, and then individuals need to recognize that we all can't live in quiet 2-acre communities and have no noise and there has to be workforce housing. When I was 20 years old, I lived in rental housing. I didn't own a home start out. I didn't own a home until I was in my mid-30s. There are many people who will never own a home. We need rental housing, and we need it to be safe and secure. The days of the basements with no walls, and we're a better community than that. So we have to do. I don't have the solution, but I know there are smart people on this island, and there are groups who can make it happen if we're all willing to give a little, just a little, and
whether it's not in my backyard,
Yeah,
has
they're not
to
in my
stop,
backyard,
or whether
yeah.
it's, I don't necessarily have to squeeze the last dollar
Right,
out of my
right,
second dwelling or whatever it might be.
right. And everyone's got to give a little. But I don't have the answer. If I had the answer.
What do you tell people who come to you looking for a place to live rather than rental assistance per se?
I tell them to use every resource they know, whether it be talk to someone in their church, talk to someone at the school, because most of the places now are found by word of mouth. I mean, someone telling someone, well, I know this is happening. I mean, we all look in the newspaper. There's nothing. There's nothing in there. Social media gets,
Snapped
there's
up right
bidding
away.
wars going out there as soon as 4 or 5 people go. So however you can. I mean, maybe you may have to stay with someone for a little bit of time. You may have to accept a winter rental and start real early trying to work your way to the next. We will help you get into that permanent situation. But again, I don't have the answer because there's nothing out there.
There's nothing out there. But there are groups that, as you say, that are working on it.
Absolutely.
And but it's going to really, at the end of the day, take a collective effort by everybody, is it not?
Yes, it is. I mean, you and I both have been part of the housing survey, and we've been working with the Community Foundation, who's been starting a dialogue and having a conversation about this. But at the end of the day, it's going to be on town meeting floor, and I've been to so many of those, and everyone is not in my backyard, and the conversation is always, I want to change the zoning so that my child can buy a home. But that's not the real issue out there. The
And that
real
doesn't-
issue out there are workers who have no place to live, and so
And it's not like they can go to the next town.
no, they cannot. And if they do, they're not coming back.
Right.
And then again, we're back in that circle again. I expect the teller and I expect all of those services to be there, and someone's providing them. So, a town meeting, it's a massive vested interest, whether it be the conservationist, whether it be the landlord who doesn't want competition with another unit so that his or her rent may go down, or whether it be folks who don't want more noise or don't want more traffic but everyone's got to give a little, or it's not going to be pretty what it's going to look like.
Well, Janice Carreiro from the Rental Assistance Program, thank you very much for sharing your views, and we all can hope that there's going to be some progress made here.
So thank you. It's
Thank
fun
you very
being
much.
back here.